Testing, 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 testing.
Good evening, everyone. How are we? Oh, that's good. Thank you, Justin. I think we might get started. It's 7 o'clock and I'd like to welcome everyone here. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage are good. I'll just check with my husband because he watches it online and it's working. So yes, we can hear. Excellent. And that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So as you are all aware, we're here tonight to hear from our community, their views on the Evanston Park Code Amendment. The Code Amendment seeks to rezone the land from a general neighbourhood zone to an employment zone to enable a future bulky goods use. This is a proponent-led code amendment with council providing advice and the Minister for Planning, Mr Nick Champion, being the decision maker. Investigations and consultation have been undertaken by Future Urban on behalf of the proponent. Engagement in these cases is the responsibility of the proponent. They completed their engagement on the 12th of March. Council has adopted an engagement plan to hear the community views, which includes this community forum, developed a community survey and provided an additional opportunity to lodge a submission. All these inputs will greatly assist Council make a better informed decision in relation to its view of the Code Amendment, which will then be provided to Future Urban and the Minister. The Town of Gawler engagement process was endorsed at a special council meeting on Tuesday, 16th of May. Tonight is the final public hearing where we hear your views. We want this process to accurately reflect the sentiment of the Gawler community, and all opinions must be heard during this process, which is why we feel it is important to give you, the community, as much opportunity as possible to have your say. Throughout our council's engagement period, we have done as follows: your voice page on Council's community engagement portal to accept submissions, provided an online community survey, held 2 drop-in sessions, delivered over 1,500 letters and an information fact sheet to affected and adjacent land owners, allocated a designated phone and email address to respond to queries, distributed media releases to all media outlets, and provided promotion of the project through 6 social media posts on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter. The results from this community forum and input collated from the submissions and the community survey will be provided to Council so that it can be more informed of the community's views in making its submission on this code amendment. We are currently working through a process to set a special council meeting. At this stage, it's the 12th of July. You might want to take note of that, to adopt a final submission to both Future Urban and the Minister for Planning. So there won't be any staff presentations. It's all about the community tonight. We have a range of speakers and I'll name them very shortly. And anyone else that wishes to come forward, please raise your hand after the speakers have spoken. You are more than welcome to make a presentation. You have 3 minutes. I'll give you a 30-second warning. Justin Simmons has a presentation and he has a little bit more time because he's put so much work into his presentation. I think that's fair and reasonable. So now, I know many of you are sitting at the front, which I really thank you for. If anyone else is speaking, please make your way to the front, please, because it just streamlines the process. So I'm going to call out the people that have submitted and wish to speak. Thank you very much. So I'll read all the names out and then I'll ask Justin to come forward, who is the first speaker. So first of all, it's Justin Simmons, Susan Robinson, Leanne Chenoweth, Paul Collins, Pat Bevis, John Hockley, Judy Gillett Ferguson, Ray Pfeiffer, Angela Zanetti, Adam Roberts, Adrian Shackley, Di Bald and Ian Tooley. Thank you. If anyone is right at the back, can you please make your way to the front? I think Adrian's sitting right at the back. So if you'd like to come down, and Judy, if you'd like to just come down, thank you. Thank you. That would be lovely. I know you don't want to, but I think it does help. So firstly, Justin, if you'd like to make your way, and if you thank you. Thank you, Justin. Now you've got some slides.
I do have slides. Sorry for being so self-indulgent.
So Justin will have a little bit more time. We've negotiated with Justin because he did put so much effort into his presentation. I think that's fair and reasonable. So thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and thank you very much for the additional time to be able to speak to you today. And yeah, it did cause me stress last night when I saw that it was only 3 minutes, and I'm very, very grateful to have some more time to share some thoughts with you. And really, I wanted to acknowledge a few other things as well. I want to acknowledge the elected body for showing support for this engagement process. I wanted to thank you all for allowing there to be an engagement process where our community can have a voice. Thank you for the honest dialogue that we've had in and around this discussion, and as mentioned before, the grace of the additional time. I want to make one more acknowledgement, and that is that there are some people that are getting up for the first time today to speak to you. Both Paul,
Keep going.
Adam and myself. I'm getting people confused.
Adam's been here before.
Adam and myself have felt like we've been representing the views of many people as we come and speak to council in the past. And tonight, I think you're going to hear that there are more people that are willing to share their thoughts on this particular issue. And you're going to see that it's more than just us. I think that's important. So I just want to go back to attachment 9 from the special meeting on the 16th of May. And just want to reiterate what this is about. And the primary aim of the engagement process was to listen to the community. And I think some key words here just need to be, they have to control the lens in which we look at this. It's really important for us to consider the residents and the landowners as the stakeholders of most interest. And so as residents and landowners, it's very important that you hear our voice. I would also ask you to have a lens as you look through the feedback that you receive, and just consider whether or not that is from a nearby resident or landowner. Consider whether that is a response that's valid, or if it comes from someone who stands to make financial gain, or if that is a response that's specifically tied to a development in this particular location. To that end, I think that the Gawler Community Plan 2030 Plus is a really critical document to look at when looking at this particular development. I'm grateful that we have this in place to set the strategic direction of the town. And in particular, I want to take the vision statement from the top, which says that the town of Gawler is livable, it's cohesive, it's active, it's innovative and sustainable. I would say that the impact of this development really is going to have a negative effect on the livability of those people that live next to this development, like myself. I think that this development is disrupting cohesion in amongst our community. And I don't think this is at all innovative. I think this is just homogenous to what happens everywhere across the whole of metropolitan Adelaide. I do want to point out that the draft submission said that from the Gawler 2030 Plus plan, that it would strengthen the position as a regional hub because it was putting $20 million into the employment zone, that it's likely to reinforce the merits of the code amendment, and claimed that developing areas of finer visual amenity will complement Gawler's country town appeal. Well, I would argue that the job creation argument that's been presented is a bit flawed by the virtue of the fact that this is really a relocation of an existing budding store. And there's rumours of, and you may be able to confirm this, that it's also a relocation of another store, and it will actually result in the closure of the existing Bedouls Garden Centre. So in terms of the net job creation, I would say that it's not as significant as initially said. And I would say that the job creation is not specifically tied to this physical location. I would also argue that there are ample opportunities in other locations where this could be achieved. There is a high vacancy rate. It's actually absurd how vacant Gawler Park Village is. There's high vacancy rates in Murray Street, and we've got 494 Main North Road on the market. So there are plenty of opportunities for employment creation to happen if council was willing to support that. I do think it's worth also just comparing Gawler to our most popular city, although I don't know whether it actually is at the moment. Gawler has 22,000 roughly people and approximately 10,000 dwellings. And the city of Sydney has 5 million residents, or more than that, and more than 2 million dwellings. And so I thought this would be a really neat comparison to see how we go with comparing our lifestyle here versus a metropolitan centre. So this is the affected area where you'll see there are 16 residential properties that border directly with their back fences the proposed site. Those 16, there's a vacant block next door to us. On to the next slide. So we're just going to go through and have a look at some of the 43 sites of Bunnings in Sydney. So this is Bunnings Alexandria, and you'll notice that there are 0 neighbouring residential properties. In Artarmon, there are 0. Balgowlah, there are 0. Bankstown Airport has 0. Belrose, Blacktown, Bonnyrigg in alphabetical order, 0. Campbelltown, Caringbah, Carlingford, Castle Hill, 0. In fact, you can see one's actually a greenfield development. Chatswood, Crossroads, G-Rail, Gladesville, Greenacre, Gregory Hills, it goes on, Hoxton Park, Kirrawee, Kingsgrove, Leppington, Lidscombe, Marsden Park, All Nothing, McGrath Hill, Minchinbury, Northmead, North Penrith, Padstow, Rydalmere, Penrith, Pymble, Randwick, Rockdale, Rouse Hill, Rozelle, Rydalmere, Seven Hills, Smithfield, Thornley, Villawood and Warringah Mall. There are 40 with no interface to residential. There's 3 that do. Here's one. This is Bunnings Rose Park, where you can see there is a Bunnings store. It's a bit hard to see underneath apartments. There is this cute one in Narrabeen with less than half the number of car parks that are at the current Bador site. And there is one at Ashfield where there are 3 residential properties and a childcare centre that adjoin. Yeah. I don't think that this maintains a real distinction from the surrounding areas. I don't think that it's aligned with 1.1.1, and I know I've got 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
And, and when you look at this side by side, this is the rate of people that live next door to a Bunnings in Sydney versus Gawler. There are 727 people per million residents that will live next to a Bunnings in Gawler. In Sydney, there is 1. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. So I neglected to say that Councillor White is an apology. He's overseas, and Councillor David Hughes is an apology. And I haven't heard from Cody, Councillor Davies, and I haven't heard from Councillor Ballalonga. So I'm not sure where they are, but they may well attend this evening. So Susan Robinson, if you'd like to come forward, thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship, councillors and council staff, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm against the amendment. My property on Coleman Parade backs onto the Vidulas land. Before purchasing our home 8 years ago, my late husband and I contacted the council in regards to the zoning of the land and were assured it was residential and would remain so even if it was sold. I'm concerned that my property will be overshadowed by the development. I realise the height of the building could be reduced, but I still worry that I will still have light restriction. I feel that the noise pollution will affect my way of life. I, like my neighbours, enjoy spending time in my garden, especially in summer. I realise the proponent is going to build a fence to help muffle the noise, but I'm yet to be convinced that the outcome will be satisfactory. I really don't relish the idea of having a barbecue and hearing forklift trucks, power tools, etc. being used going from 7 AM to 7 PM or even later daily. The fence that the proponent is going to build also has concerns, as there will be a gap between my house and it. This could be a haven for graffiti vandals, as they would have a very large canvas to practice on. Security could also be an issue, as there will be plenty of coverage for antisocial behaviour, and there is also a chance of rodent infestation. My other concerns regard traffic. I'm worried that Coleman Parade will be a rat run, as it's human nature to take the quickest route, and 3 sets of traffic lights on Main North Road in quick succession will certainly slow things down. There is also the matter of the childcare centre that has been built opposite Gawler Green. It has no right-hand turn, so traffic will have to turn right onto Potts Road and then left onto Coleman Parade, adding more traffic. There could also be the possibilities of cars doing illegal U-turns and onto Ames Road, which happens on a fairly regular basis. My final concern is the visual impact that this building will have as you are entering the historic part of Gawler. We have a really unique town, and I honestly feel that if this development goes ahead, the aesthetics of our town will be forever spoilt. Because once built, there will be no turning back. And quite honestly, I don't think there is one person here tonight that would want this development built behind their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Leanne Chinawa, thank you.
Good evening. This is my voice. I oppose the proposal code amendment, the rezoning of the land at 550 to 554 Main North Road, Evanston Park. I am in favour of preserving the residential character for the well-being of our neighbourhood and our Gawler community. We need to protect our lifestyle for not only our current families that live in the Evanston Park community, but also for our future families that will be moving into our Evanston Park community. I believe that developing this land for low density residential with open landscape areas is in line with the Gawler Community Plan 2030 and possibly even beyond. We have all been really brave, and we have stood together to protect our community. I believe our voices do matter, and together we can make a difference. Thank you for the Gawler Council for listening to my voice.
Thank you, Leanne. Paul Collins. Paul Collins, is Paul here? Yeah.
Thank you once again. We must stop meeting like this. Mayor Redmond, council members, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak against the code amendment. I can see the advantages for the council if the proposed zone amendment proceeds, as it will tick a few boxes. It will create an employment zone, and the proponent will have to contribute to some of the services upgrades. The code amendment will lead to development that will create a negative entry statement to the historic Hall of Gawler. So what price does the council put on heritage? Some will say it's over 500,000. This will be the proponent's contribution to the proposed works. If the zone amendment proceeds, the loss of heritage can never be brought back. The amendment is inconsistent with the elements of the council's community plan of the 2020 and the economic development strategy of the 2020-2025. The zone amendment will generate a significant additional traffic in the already congested area and rat running, as you heard, in the adjacent residential streets. So far in our area, the real estate agents have been targeting Gawler South properties, offering for evaluations. Do they know something we don't? Or are they just taking advantage of the uncertain outcome? Recently, there was an advert for an elevated block in Bluestone Quarry Road, that's behind Mount Terrace. The ad said, "The block feels like you're sitting in the clouds with views over Gawler, the rolling mountains and the Gawler and Barossa Jockey Club." Very poetic. If this code amendment proceeds, you would need to change the advert to views a very large green building with a hammer motif on the side. I believe this is one of the most important decisions that the council will have to make. I urge the council members to vote no on the proposed code amendment. The Gawler Council has an opportunity to preserve the entrance to Gawler as a legacy for future generations. Please vote no on the zone amendment. It is the wrong site for the proposed development. Thank you for your time.
Pat Bevis. Pat Bevis, thank you.
Good evening. Thank you to Mayor Redmond and her fellow councillors for giving me this opportunity to speak again tonight. Today is my granddaughter Olive's 7th birthday. Normally, I would be celebrating this occasion with my family, but instead I am here speaking to you all because I believe this is an incredibly important issue for the whole of Gawler community. We have been told that the reason for the code amendment is to sustain the growing population of Gawler and that therefore land for employment, generating uses and job creation is essential. The suggestion that this 4-hectare site in a residential community is the answer to the provision of employment areas is nonsensical for a multitude of reasons. It is a proposal that feels reactive, short-sighted, and ill-conceived. Traffic impacts will be immense, despite additional traffic lights to supposedly manage the bottleneck, which will have a flow-on effect along Adelaide Road and into the centre of Gawler. This will lead to drivers avoiding the congestion and using the adjacent residential streets in Evanston Park and Gawler South, causing increased noise pollution and safety concerns for residents. It could be that people may choose to bypass this area altogether as a result, which will be to the detriment of local business. I want to reiterate that I am by no means anti-development, but I firmly believe that the planned development is in the wrong location. There are other areas in the Greater Gawler area, such as the proposed new Concordia development that would be far more suitable. Employment opportunities in Gawler could be greatly improved if the many empty commercial premises around the turn were utilised and not left empty and decaying. The visual impact of this development, even with the reduced height of the building, will affect not only the residential area that surrounds it, but the aesthetic of the current Adelaide Road streetscape. This will not be resolved by 6-metre trees being planted. As residents of Gawler for 35 years, my husband Den and I despair at the changing appearance of the southern entrance into Gawler. More ugly concrete construction, fewer trees,
30 seconds.
less
Thank you,
green
Pat.
space and congested roadways are not welcoming. Gawler needs to be beautified for the benefit of all those who live, work and visit here. We believe that this proposed development will irrevocably change the character and livability of our local community. And when all local residents lose out, this looks nothing like progress. As such, we unequivocally object to the proposed code amendment of 550 to 554 Main North Road, Evanston Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. John Hockley.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and members of the gallery and neighbours and friends. Once again, I'm here to speak about the rezoning and the building of the possible bulk stores. As we've said many times before, it goes against the beautification plan of Gawler and has no real positive benefits to the direct area or Gawler as a whole. We already have a Bunnings and similar stores. And an extra set of traffic lights is certainly not going to improve any of the congestion. It's only going to add to it, which may lead to rat running and extra traffic down Ames Drive, etc. Although it supposedly technically ticks all the boxes, it is far from suitable for Gawler as a whole, and even less suitable for the residents of the adjoining houses to the property and of Evanston Park in general. This area needs to stay residential. It's a community-based area, as is the whole town. It's a heritage town, a beautiful town, and a community town. And community is built on people, families, and friends, not big, ugly cement buildings. All of the feedback that I've heard, and I speak to a lot of people on a daily basis, from locals and visitors to Gawler, is in total opposition to the rezoning. No extra jobs in the area is guaranteed, so employment hub is a very loosely used term. How does Bunnings moving bring new employment? Because they already have employees, and the TKD is only going to move into the existing Bunnings, so that will be very unlikely to bring more employment. This then means the current building that TKD is using in the home centre is going to be another empty building, as is half the main street, which is very unfortunate. Gawler is a beautiful place, but we do thank you for your time, giving the consultation and our time here tonight, and just hope that you take everything that we've said into consideration. And I thank Justin for all his hard work as well, but he's really put in the effort.
Thank you, John. Judy Gillett Ferguson.
Mayor Redmond, councillors and staff and fellow community members. I am really disappointed that this has even been considered. It is a really very anti-people decision if it goes ahead. I want to record my deeply felt concerns and opposition to the proposed commercial development of the current Bedoulis family property on the corner of Adelaide Road and Sheriff Road. I live in very close proximity to the proposed development, and my husband David and I bought our block and built our home there because it was such a beautiful residential area. I want to make the following submission to council. The site, I believe, is inappropriate in its location for the following reasons. It is at the entrance to a historic town lined with buildings of local heritage interest. The immediately adjacent area is a quiet, well laid out residential area and should continue as such, especially as new homes are in high demand. It should comply with the current land use and ambience of the neighbourhood. It is currently a well-treed area, and I fear many significant trees would be lost if a development such as is proposed went ahead. An 11.5 metre building does not belong next to single-storey residential buildings. Residents in the vicinity would have to endure noise, disruption, pollution caused by warehouses, shops, loading zones, and yet another set of traffic lights on Adelaide Road, which we need like a hole in the head. We should, as a whole community, strive to maintain the integrity of Gawler as an historic town, as my fellow residents have said, with strong integration between the new developments and existing areas. I'm sure that there are better suited areas for this type of development. I'd like to finish by commending council for listening to us, for listening to their community.
Thank you, Judy. Ray Pfeiffer.
Good evening, councillors, and thank you for giving me the time to address you tonight. I've been a resident of Gawler for some 45 years, and so I believe I need to have some say. And firstly, let me say from the outset that I'm against the code amendment to change from the general neighbourhood zone. Currently the Vidula site roof line blends in quite well with the surrounding housing. To have an 11-metre high box type building at this site, I believe, is just a design hodgepodge and an eyesore. We already have zone catering for this less than a kilometre down the road. So irrespective of the zoning outcome, after all this, there is a simpler solution for smoother traffic flow. And this will take me to my next point. I've read the Future Urban's interim engagement report dated 4th of May this year, which refers to the proposed traffic signals on the main North Road. It says the proposed traffic signals will result in minimal changes in delays to drivers. I call into question the modelling report, which comes to this conclusion. Currently, some 24,000 vehicles per day use this section of road, and traffic is often down to a crawl. Now, these figures come from the DIT. Traffic signals will only compound this existing issue. I go through this area just about every day, and the last thing we need is interruption to the traffic. With the future widening and duplication of Main North Road already planned, I propose that the Department of Infrastructure and Transport be approached to design a dual lane roundabout to include realignment of First and Sheriff Streets. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Ray. Angela Zanetti.
Good evening. As a resident and landowner, I stand before you to voice my strong opposition to the proposed rezoning of 550 to 554 Main North Road. While I understand the importance of economic development and growth, I firmly believe that this particular development will have detrimental effects on our community and the quality of life for its residents. The rezoning of this area will result in significant traffic congestion, making it increasingly difficult for us to navigate our own town. The increase in freight alone for an outlet of the type, size and scale being proposed is especially of concern. The proposed development will introduce unacceptable pollution, disrupting the peace of our residential neighbourhoods. This is not the future I envisioned. The 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide aims to create a more livable environment, and the proposed rezoning does not contribute to that goal. The proposed rezoning also goes against the goals set out in the Gawler Community Plan 2030+, which prioritises the well-being and livability of our community. Introducing a bulky goods outlet in this location may add to employment figures, but it will only exacerbate traffic and noise, making Gawler a less attractive place to live, work and raise a family overall. Employment creation is possible in other locations. The proposed rezoning disregards the priorities of the Climate Emergency Action Plan and exposes our community to increased pollution and heat. The Climate Emergency Action Plan has a vision where urban weekend life is quiet due to the uptake of electric renewables, where an extended and connected cycling system resulting in a massive increase in cycling around Gawler, and where health and well-being of the community and improved living conditions are at the forefront of our decisions. This proposal and its proximity to residents, schools, daycares, retirement and nursing homes goes against this vision. The Town of Gawler's Ageing Well framework highlights concerns of older residents, including traffic congestion and reduced tree canopy. This proposal does nothing to address these concerns. Instead, it worsens them. The safety and accessibility of our roads, particularly for pedestrians and mobility scooter users, should be a priority, but this rezoning proposal neglects these considerations. The same is true of the walking and cycling plan. This rezoning proposal fails this plan, placing a large-scale bulky goods outlet in this location does not promote walking and cycling. Instead, it encourages more driving. I urge you all to consider the objections raised today. The proposed rezoning does not align with the visions and plans set out by the Town of Gawler. Thank you for hearing my voice.
Thank you, Angela. Adam Roberts.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our forum. Thanks everyone for rocking up tonight. It's a tough gig up here, right? Safe to say I'm not as prepared as Justin, the school teacher here.
He's a chemistry senior, so he's
He's
very methodical.
He's also a PowerPoint addict as well. I was hoping this forum would be more of a two-way conversation as opposed to us just standing up here and being under the spotlight.
I will be asking elected members if they want to ask questions at the end.
Brilliant.
So there will be an opportunity for that, Adam.
Thank you. Because I just like a clarification on a point regarding overshadowing. An email sent by Mr. Andrew Goodsell to Justin, dated on the 18th of May, indicated that the overshadowing schematics delivered by Matthews on behalf of Future Urban were only applicable if the building covered 100% the footprint of the site. I'd just like some clarification as to whether if the building is built along the 9 metre setback on 2 or 3 of the sides, whether that'll also give off the same overshadowing effects. Yeah, I think. And enough's been said tonight.
Just one moment, Adam.
Sure.
Just one moment. You've asked a question.
Okay.
I was somewhat unclear in my question. Could you restate the question for me?
Okay, so you just turn your mic on again, Adam. Yeah.
Yeah, so the email that you sent to Justin, you're of the view that the overshadowing schematics would only apply if the building occupied 100% of the site.
Okay, I think he's
sure.
Have you got the gist, Andrew? So Andrew will now answer the question.
Yeah, it's certainly fair to say that the drawings are based on the whole building, sorry, the whole envelope as shown on the concept plan being entirely developed to 11.5 metres. In reality, that's not what's going to happen, because you know, with a building that's 40,000 square metres or thereabout, which is clearly not what's going to happen. So that's the context of that question. But in terms of what I actually said in my email, it was that the proposed development fundamentally met the standards set out under the code. But there are, I went into some finer grain detail about site level differences and a few other matters as well, into hour by hour, and their model, you could argue there were some aspects that you could see differently to that way that showed it in terms of the impact on boundaries, and there's fence shadowing and other things. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're not of the opinion that if the building is built along the 9 metre setback, it will comply. You're of that opinion?
What Andrew said was that it, the merits complied with the code. Is that what you said, Andrew?
Effectively, yes. But what I also said was that there are some height differentials between the two sites, which actually means that the height as shown in the model is not 100% accurate. So if you actually look at the site levels, the Vidula's property, it varies across the site. The lowest point's down near Main North Road, but roughly at where the modelling is shown, it's out by about 0.5 of a metre. It's actually lower than what's shown on the model. That's all.
So, Andrew, your role as a planner, what is your role under the code?
Our role under the code is to determine whether or not that the proposed development, if it's built in accordance with the concept plan, fundamentally meets the code requirements.
So that they have a defined role. Okay, yeah, I think that's fair to say that the council planning staff have a defined role. Okay.
Sure, accept that, Mayor. It's just, I want it on the record that the proponents are stating this will not comply. That is from the proponents.
Sorry?
The proponents are of the opinion that this does not comply in regards to overshadowing. I just want that acknowledged.
Are you able to acknowledge that, or have you got a different opinion, Andrew?
Basically, what I'm saying is that their plan showed modelling on the shortest day of the year from 9 till 3 p.m. And what they're saying is that the minor alterations they would incur as part of the DA process could substantially be achieved to meet the code. That's what they're saying.
Okay, so you might want to move on, Adam.
That's fine. I'm done. I just want that clarified.
Yeah.
Okay. See you next month.
Thank you. Adrian Shackley, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor, councillors and staff and community members. I'm here speaking on behalf of Gawler Environment and Heritage Association. We've put in an additional submission, which I think councillors have had a chance to have a brief look at least. Just in speaking tonight, I want to make a number of points. Firstly, in relation to the council's community plan, I think it's pretty reprehensible that both the proponent and our officers who made comment on that couldn't find anything in the community plan really to get their teeth into. So we've listed the provisions that we think need to be dealt with, and actually quite a few people who presented tonight have mentioned some of them. But I mean, our community plan speaks very strongly to the character, amenity, presentation, etc. of the town. And any major development like this, particularly in an area that's not currently meant to be, it has to face some pretty substantial challenges in relation to that sort of analysis. Secondly, in relation to what's called employment land, I think it was wrong of the council report that was put up by the council administration to talk about land in the rural zone. I mean, the vast majority of land that was identified in the plan as sort of something to be looked at was the land in the rural zone. Well, even the proponent had a look at that and said, well, hang on, that's supposed to be your, buffer between urban areas, and we're not touching it. And we'd expect significant opposition to that. And of course you would. It's not appropriate at all to be looking at that land and saying, well, you can do something down there potentially. I mean, I know the report says, well, no, we don't want to, but that was the major option. I mean, what we're putting forward potentially is that we've got two major urban development areas in the town at the moment, at Springwood and round Tamblin Station. I mean, part of their sort of master planning of development and what they've done over the years is to emphasise stuff to do with employment. Now, there's no discussion at all in the documentation about what the possibilities are for some of that land currently undeveloped and available, potentially to be rezoned. I mean, quite a bit of the land in Springwood is zoned for, dual use type activities, and potentially some of the land around Tamblin Station is equally available for some sort of commercial activities. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a good idea to put this sort of development down there. But if you're going to start looking at rezoning residential land, surely you'd start in a place where there's no current residential development. And there's heaps of it. Hundreds of hectares. So, you know, I just think that the analysis about, you know, employment land, what we need, how to deal with it in Gawler just wasn't very helpful. In the issue about a gateway and entry to the older part of Gawler, I mean, the proponent didn't even seem to get near the mark. They talked about this particular section of road does not represent a gateway into the main street of Gawler. Well, of course, it doesn't represent a gateway into the main street of Gawler. It's a couple of kilometres away. But what it does represent is an entry into the old part of Gawler. And in our original submission, we've put forward the plans of the original subdivisions of Gawler, and basically the old part of Gawler started at Sheriff Street, and it was like that for till 1985 when the council boundaries changed. That's a pretty long time. That's the best part of 150 years, and of course that dictated a whole lot of how the town developed. So the land to the south was essentially rural, you know, a few small blocks, etc. And once you hit Sheriff Street, then the main subdivisions and historic development of Gawler started. And that's crucial for thinking
You've
about
got 30
this site.
seconds. Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you. And in terms of the impact of visual, I mean, we've said, have a look from the racecourse. I mean, that wall up there, not this one, but the big one is about 8 metres. So you're looking at 50% higher than that wall. And a huge building. That's a massive impact on vision from all sorts of places. And finally, the council really needs to get its handle on how it presents reports. I mean, I'm pretty surprised that on the council's website, it can say that this draft submission that we're commenting on was adopted by the council on the 16th of May. Now, I was here. This council specifically said it noted it. And what's on your council website says it was adopted. Fix it. And in general, when
your time's up.
thank you.
So-
Just one comment. When council staff and administration write reports, it should be clear that the view of council staff and administration. Stop using council supports this or council as a view that this is sort of where we're heading. Unless council's had a look at it and thought about it, that's not a fair way to present information, and it will mislead all sorts of people, like proponents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Is Diebold here? Is Diebold here at all? Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? You are more than welcome to come up. This is your opportunity to speak to council if you wish. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes, come forward. Thank you. Anybody else? If you can put your hand up. Anybody else? Yes, thank you. Come forward. Thank you. There's a couple of seats at the front. Thank you. What was your name, ma'am?
My name's Maureen Dunkeld. Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and council staff. I am totally unprepared, and this is a spur of the moment. I actually live in Bluestone Quarry Road, so you could say I'm not directly affected. However, as soon as I come around the corner towards Sheriff Street, it will be right in front of me. I'm here to support those people who live in Ames, Holman Parade and Sheriff Street. The impact on their lifestyle is going to be enormous. I've only lived in Bluestone Quarry Road for 5.5 years. And when I decided to buy the property, the first thing my son and I did was to find out about the zoning of the land and also zoning on the hill behind us. And we were assured it was residential. That's the premise upon which I purchased my house 5.5 years ago. the plan that we looked at tonight clearly shows that that Bunnings development, we all know it's going to be Bunnings, is smack bang in the middle of a residential area on residential land. I don't think that that's the best thing that can happen for Gawler. People have spoken about the entrance to the town, about the heritage, and I won't repeat all of that, just to say that I am absolutely opposed to this development. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I hope that this council makes a decision in the best interests of the residents of Gawler. Thank you.
Thank you. Who was next? We've got two gentlemen sitting at the front. You'd like to come, what was your name, sir? Rob Miller? Oh, yes, Robert Miller.
I'm a resident of Mount Terrace, and I feel that this change will cause massive traffic problems in the area. It will, where it's a nice Sunday area, it won't be anymore. That's the end of that, you know. Every home handyman and his son will be out there in the morning going to get their stuff from Bunnings. You know, and what council's got to consider is that all you people here that make these decisions, this is your legacy, not ours. Like this was for Abigail and us, you know, bloody Karen's bloody Bunnings. So you need to really think about it, because we don't want this in the area. No one does. And so everyone else has put their cases forward. I agree with them all. I don't agree with the way it's been dealt with by the council. You know, you send out a questionnaire, which doesn't even say, do you agree with this? It just says, which development you want on the corner. It's a load of crap. So that's it. I'd just like to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And I think there was the final gentleman. If you'd like to state your name in the microphone and we can just capture it.
My name's Michael Harnett.
Michael, oh
Yep.
yes. You've got the floor, Michael.
Thank you. So yeah, basically, I'd like to thank you all for letting me have the opportunity to speak. There are fundamental issues with the proposed code amendment, which seeks to rezone the subject land to an employment zone. An employment zone is not suitable for the subject land in its most basic reasoning. And that basic reasoning is it would negatively impact upon a predominantly residential, the predominant residential character of the locality by introducing a clear interface conflict between commercial and existing well-established residential land uses. The front cover of the submission that council released had an aerial view of the subject land, and it was just quite clear just looking at that in its most basic reasoning, because it's surrounded by housing. Significant areas of land are currently available in suitable locations within the Gawler area to accommodate employment generating land uses. These areas have excellent access to the Sturt Highway for transport distribution purposes and are distanced from sensitive residential localities to minimise land use interface issues. The proposed signalised access to the subject land, should it be rezoned and developed, would add another set of traffic lights on Main North Road. When adding this to the already 4 sets of traffic lights, a set of pedestrian lights and 2 roundabouts on the 3.2 kilometre stretch from Gawler's southern entrance, Trinity Drive, to its town centre, it would equate to a sum of 8 traffic management treatments within 3.2 kilometres. That's an average of 1 per 400 metres. Lastly, with the retail centres to the south of the subject land, containing a variety of outlets and sufficiently servicing the community, the township needs to be wary, because we do not want a new retail facility that would detract from the existing ones, and create a locality shift rather than generate new employment. Moving Bunnings, sure, it'll be a bigger Bunnings, it might employ a few more people, but the people that are currently there are just going to relocate. And just because Bunnings sets up in Gawler doesn't necessarily mean it will employ Gawler people. Gawler needs an increase in residential development in walking distance to existing activity centres on Main North Road, rather than another warehouse shop and bulky goods outlet of the same intent. There are schools in the area. People could be living in close proximity to these schools and businesses and walking there. That would reduce traffic congestion as opposed to increasing traffic congestion, which this proposal somewhat, allows for. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now, I'll give a final call if anyone else wishes to speak. You are more than welcome to come forward. If there's anyone else that is itching to speak to council, now is your opportunity. No? Can't see any hands up? Okay, so now I'm going to open it up to councillors to ask questions. Have you got any questions, councillors?
Mayor, if I could ask, this is a two-part question for you. It was just something which was said in response to Adam's question. I think it was about the role of council planning staff under the code. Is it possible to get a repeat of what that was?
Yes, I think that would be quite useful. Thank you, Councillor Solomon. So the role of the planner in these code amendments, what is your role, Andrew?
For the chair, the role of the council planning team is to assess the submissions, to put a professional planning submission through to the minister ultimately as to the merits, whether it meets requirements of the code, local policy and regional state policy.
I think that answers your question. Do I have another question? Anybody else?
So I was curious then, given that there's that role which we originally established as assisting in that process and assisting the proponent to understand the compliance matters, I was wondering in this current consultation.
I don't think it's compliance, it's assessing. It's assessing the merits of the application or otherwise.
Right.
Yes.
So it is assessing the merits.
It's not compliance. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's no separation between the current consultation and what the responsibility of council staff to draft a submission based on the beliefs of the elected body as a representative body and what the residents are saying, and to deal with the code amendment.
I might hand that over to Andrew, because Andrew, you will pull all of this information together and build a report that will come to council on the 12th of July.
Yeah, through the chair. So ultimately there'll be a report on the 12th, which will contain a summary of submissions received, the results of the surveys. On top of that, there will be a review, I guess, of the submission we originally tendered, which you're aware of. There will be a recommendation in regards to whether the submission that was tabled back in May would still stand, or whether in fact an alternative submission was appropriate, or whether in fact the submission that was tabled would be modified. So there's a couple of different scenarios there as to how submissions would be tabled to council, and we haven't got to the point of drafting that up because clearly we're still going through the process as we speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Any other questions? Any questions for the speakers this evening? Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to Mr. Shackley, because I felt his time was a bit rushed at the end. And as somebody who believes that language...
About 5 minutes, actually.
Okay, that's okay. Yes, I know. It went to extended from that. But as somebody who thinks language is really important, could he please just reiterate what he's seen on our website and what the problem might be?
I think he actually explained that rather well. He said that council had adopted the, which is not correct. So we will go back and change that. Chris Hannaford is nodding his head. We will change that. Is there something else? Because that's what he said. He said that has been adopted. We haven't adopted anything. We've noted it, and that will be adjusted. And our staff are nodding their heads, Councillor Hennessy. So I think that will be rectified, and I think that addresses your question. Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? Oh, sorry, Councillor Davies, I didn't see your hand up. You only just had it up like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, just a question to staff about whether we've had any further, I guess, noteworthy feedback, with the proponents or anything like that since we last met.
I'm not sure if you are able to answer that, but if you can, please do, Andrew.
Through the chair. We've been having ongoing conversations with the proponent. We did an update last week to indicate the process of engagement and the drop-in sessions and the feedback we'd received. It probably wasn't much of a surprise to them in terms of some of that feedback. And I guess from there, we're still working through aspects in regards to the concept plan, the land management agreement and the like, all which we'll shed more light on when we provide a report to the July meeting.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that you're happy with that answer. Thank you. Any, yes, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I was just going to ask a question to Justin, if you wouldn't mind. Are you able to just give a brief explanation on how many, I guess, community meetings you guys have organised and attended, and just, I guess, your process of working us through on how you guys have come together and yeah, discuss these matters since your knowledge?
Thank you very much, Councillor Shanes, for your question. It's been something that has, in fact, I stumbled across the very first community meeting by chance. We received the notice from Future Urban back in January. We just came back from a extended holiday, and we've looked at it, and we are livid when we see this notification. Weren't aware of any of the community meetings that were initially taking place until we stumbled across the very first one, and finally found that we were not alone. There were a lot of people that shared this view. There have been a number of meetings that have been taking place of the community members in that space at the end of Ames Drive and Common Parade, where there's the playground and community park. And I would say that there has probably been around 8. Ooh, that's about 8 of those. And there has been, and funnily enough, I didn't know any of my neighbours until 6 months ago. So if nothing else, I've got the proponents to thank for introducing me to the wonderful people who stand to my right and further back here as well. And so we have met at houses and taken the opportunity to communicate with each other, as well as using social media, email and various other platforms to be able to engage and connect with each other so that we can share a common understanding about what those key issues are. And I think that that's a significant thing, because what we have here is a lot of lay people in this space that actually don't understand the technical language and the complexity that there is associated with undertaking a code amendment. And it's absolutely to the credit of these fabulous people here who are really intelligent, critical thinkers who have been able to decipher all of the stuff that's been presented to us. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Thank you. And Justin's also doing a PhD. He's also doing a PhD, which in his spare time. So, which is probably at 2 o'clock in the morning. Any other questions, councillors? I think that has exhausted the questions. I'd like to thank all the speakers this evening. You've spoken exceptionally well, and anybody who came up, like Robert, just came up, and thank you very much. And Michael, and Maureen, who just came up and wanted to have a say. Thank you very much for that those off the cuff comments, because it's not easy to come forward, but you were very, very welcome to have your say. This is all about listening to you this evening, and we'll be taking all of these comments into consideration as we determine what our position will be as a council. Remember, the Minister, Mr. Nick Champion, is the final arbiter. It's the state government and the planning minister that makes the final decision. So let's see where that goes. Thank you everyone for coming along. And I think we might wrap this up this evening. Thank you again, everyone, for coming along. Please drive safely home, and everyone have a great evening. Thank you.